Hi, so I already presented myself, so I don't have to again. And I can start with the title. I'm here tonight to try to convince you into this, so that deep learning is the next UX platform. And that we can understand UX as computation. So a bit different approach to these topics. Why this? So I used to work as a data scientist. I used to work in gaming. On one project, I worked a lot with UX designers and game designers. And I kind of got the feel about how they think about building a product, how will people interact with that, and all of that. And it was super interesting to me. Yeah, so these are kind of my beginnings some 30 years ago. As I said, I got Commodore 64 when I was 8. And I discovered games and I discovered programming, and it was a huge thing for me. Actually, my aunt introduced me to it. So there you go. And you know, one of the games that were on those machines were these early text adventures, and it was amazing. It was like a promise of talking to a computer. So it's, you know, it's this ancient wish to get a chat GPT, basically. But in essence, it wasn't much more expressive than the actual basic let's say Commodore's operating system. So you needed to go somewhere and type the exact phrase to get something achieved, you know. So obviously, you know, one of the first things that I did when I got my hands on ChatGPT was to try to live my childhood dream, you know, to actually talk to Text Adventure. And you can write a prompt that's about a paragraph long, and you can set up yourself a text adventure, and it's really interesting, you know. And you know, by just changing one word, you can say, okay, I want it in Harry Potter world or Alice in Wonderland, and it actually works as a text adventure. So amazing. You can do all kinds of stuff which are not predicted, but it doesn't have any structure. So you can try a bit there, but you know. Anyway, it was a tangent. So I just put these 4 here because that's how much space I had. I'm gonna talk about these things from the perspective of UX. So the first thing, top left, is a punch card. So that predates Commodore and all of that. So people actually used to punch the holes to program a computer. Amazing. There's pile this big to write a one program. And then we got a screen and a keyboard. And this weird thing here is the first mouse. So you could actually point somewhere. And then we got the touch screen. And there's one really important thing about these things, these changes. So when we got the first mouse, you could point the cursor somewhere, but basically the first programs used this thing to move across text, you know. So no one was you know, thinking at that time to have a, you know, Windows whatever 95. But then people adapted to this new technology, and then programs evolved to accommodate this new interaction with the machine. And when we got touchscreen, we changed the way how we create programs. So it's not just taking a, you know, Windows 95 program and putting it on mobile device. It's just, you know, completely different experience. It has its own logic. because it's accommodating to completely new way of interaction between humans and the machines. And in a way, you can understand basically any higher level language as a better interface between a programmer and the computer. So, you know, imagine these punch cards, and then you know, in Python you just write one command and it does like amazing things. You know, so it's sort of a good UX. Okay. So this is also another lens that I like. I didn't read the book, but it was really interesting idea that, you know, like everything is a computation. So in that sense, you know, UX can be modeled as a computation as well. So what is a good UX? It's basically reducing the amount of computation a human does to do a task. That simple. So going back to the function in Python, basically you can, you know, just call the function, it has nice name. It's much simpler than punching the cards. And then a really interesting thing, how you can understand things like you know, ChatGPT or Copilot or things like that, is they're actually providing a better UX towards the machine for programmers, because now if you want to do something, you don't have to know how to do it. You can ask the Copilot and they will write some code, and you can play with it, and it ends up working. So in terms of good UX, how we understand it, if you have an application that's, you know, well built, you can give it to someone who has no idea about it, and they will actually know how to use it. So that's good UX. And this is really similar. So if you give, I don't know, ChatGPT to someone who has really basic knowledge about programming, they can do something. Obviously not everything, they will not be masters. But you know, it's sort of doing the same job as a good UX. So I'll give you a couple of examples of how you can treat these things, large language models, as a way of you know, new UX platform. So basically, there's a lot of attempts to create systems that will you know, translate some human queries into SQL, and that's something that usually fails. You know, it's going to work for some cases, just like Copilot will work for some cases when generating code, but it will not make you a master programmer. And the problem with SQL is, you know, the LLM needs to figure out the data model, it needs to figure out the business logic, which is this huge structure that we're actually you know, paying business analysts to hold this whole structure in their head. So this is the computation they're doing. Then they need to figure out the question and generate a valid SQL. So that's a lot of you know, structure, a lot of logic that a simple LLM needs to figure out. And these are not the systems that are actually built for this task. And then an alternative is something else. So this is something I'm working on, because right now I'm developing this you know, analytics platform, and one of the things we have is we have this semantic layer that's basically, let's say, a piece of code that's connecting, you know, how the KPIs are calculated from from data models, so it knows about the data model, it knows about the stuff that people ask from it, it knows how to generate SQL, and all of that is fine crafted by humans, by very good programmers. It took actually like a few months, so no wonder an LLM can't do it from simple prompt. And then you can just translate a human query for something they want, which is already well described, to a request to this semantic layer, and it works better, So in this case, you're using this LLM basically as a new way of interacting with the system. You can put it in whatever, Slack, and then someone is typing in Slack, they want some data that's interesting to them in this group, and they get everything from the program which already packaged it all. So this is something which is going to be built soon. But then I had a sort of a thought experiment about, okay, how does something look like if it's natively built for these systems? So I felt that this first example is still kind of strapping the new interaction method to something that's already existing. And I was thinking about, okay, when we got touch screen, everything was redesigned. There was something like completely new paradigm about how to build programs. How would it look like to build something natively on large language models? And this is the example I like. It's possibly a product, I don't know. I hope someone will build it. I need this thing. So it's sort of like second mind. There's many note-taking apps, and I hate them all. And the reason I hate them is because you always need to have a system to use them, And I don't want that. I don't want to spend my processing power on the mental model of how I'm going to use notes. So basically, it's easier for me just to try to remember something outright. This is maybe a very good example of why this is a completely new UX platform. So imagine to have only like one prompt, like for ChatGPT, and then you write something to it, whatever notes. Maybe it can take images as well. So all of that is going somewhere, it's going into an ether of this thing. It's in the cloud or whatever, abstraction you like. So you don't have to have this system where you're going to put the note in which folder, how will you tag it, and all of that. And then you can still continue talking to this system, and what it should do is basically, from all this storage, just pull the stuff that's relevant to your query from the data you put in. And this is, completely different experience for the note-taking, because it completely removes this mental structure about using it. And I kind of found some project. It's called Quiver. I still haven't used it well enough to say if that's the thing I'm describing here. Might be. You can check it. But why I'm talking all of this? So we want to use AI to build better products, and all the complex things like LLMs that we have built now can be watched through different lenses. There's a lot of perspectives you can think about, and one of the perspectives is this one. And it might help you build actually better products. And from my experience so far about building products, it's about solving human problems. And maybe one of the potentials of this technology is actually to help more humans use the technology overall, because each day things are becoming more and more complex, and at one point there will be one big gap, which is stopping a lot of people to actually use a lot of the technology we have today. And then having something as seamless as these systems can actually help more people to use everyday technology. So there you go, a perspective to think about.
Cool. Thank you. We maybe have only time for one question. There you go. It's yours.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Marko. So I have a question about UX. So if we look at the language model through the lens of reducing UX barrier, is it possible, in a sense, to harm the UX of final user? So as you said, someone who doesn't know how to code now suddenly knows how to code, but in a very special way, I would say.
So here's one example. There's a lot of let's say very manual programming jobs, like building some web apps or something like that, which look a lot like one another. And I see a future where a lot of those jobs will disappear because people will be using some AI-driven systems to do that. So again, the point here is that a good UX cannot make you into something that you're not. Okay, so ChatGPT will not make you a poet even though you generated desiderates with it. You're still not Filip Višnjić, if you know who he is. So you're not a good poet, you're not a good programmer with those tools. But a good UX will help you do some things easier, and it will help more people to do some things. And that's the way I like to understand these systems. So I'm very conservative. I don't see some general intelligence in that. It's actually pretty boring after a while to talk to ChatGPT. Like, my kids are more interesting. They have 2 and 5. But it can do things like this.